Hi, everyone. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and thank you for joining this live AMA. If you're not asleep, and if you were, hopefully you will catch it the next day when we'll go on YouTube. So, just wanted to spend a little time with you and hopefully answer some questions that I found in the comment sections, also on Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. So I'll just read a couple of comments, questions, and do my best to answer you guys' questions in the next half hour or so. So hi, good morning, Chris. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if the audio is fine. I just want to make sure that that is working, and I'll start with reading questions, but also take live questions. All right. So I'm assuming the audio is okay. It's always hard to know that, but all right. So let's just dig into some questions. So T Kenshin says, Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. He says, I have dumb questions. During the high inflation period of Romania, those who owned apartments where they had to pay HOAs, maintenance fees, and so on. I'm assuming the fees increased at the rate of inflation. How were people able to keep up making these payments without getting kicked out, as they were constantly increasing, unlike a house with just a fixed payment of mortgage? Does no one pay it, or does the government intervene like rent control? Been thinking a lot about this and would love to hear your experience. Okay, perfect. Audio is all good. So at least I know that question went through. Thank you, Chris. Okay, right. So we did have HOAs. Almost every apartment had an HOA because we were coming out of communism, and these buildings that were apartment that were built under communism, they had roughly around, I mean, could be around 40 apartment or 80 apartments. Those were the most commons, and all of the apartment had HOAs, asociație, which roughly translates association or HOA, of course. There were pays, however, the fees were not increasing at the rate of inflation. So they were increasing somewhat, but just like in the HOA, there are board meetings. There's a board and so on. And before, well, I don't know too much about HOAs in the United States. Actually, I try to keep away from them as much as I can. Keep away from it like fire, so to say. But yeah, so in these cases in Romania, it was actually there were presidents and so on, and they were made up from the people who lived in these apartment buildings. Now the HOA actually had more apartments in it, but these blocks or these apartment buildings had their own side of subgroup or something like that, and the pay was determined by per apartment building, because each apartment building had a different situation regarding maintenance and so on. So it was a bit flexible. Eventually, it started growing, but hyperinflation, or when we went into hyperinflation, it had a shock on the system, and everybody was trying to recover from the shock or trying to understand what was happening. It's not like their most immediate concern was to raise the HOA, right? Even the people who were running the HOAs, they were also sort of suffering from high inflation and trying to survive what was coming, um, and lasted a lot. So yes, they were rising, but I wouldn't say they were worried people were worried too much. Even if you didn't pay, um, I mean, it was sort of, I wouldn't say law of the jungle, but it would, I don't think they would have a lot of power to put you out of the apartment building because people would revolt. And we just went through the revolution of 89. It's not like people were really happy about things. And yeah, it didn't really count as much as people think it counts now, you know. I think in normal, regular situation, HOAs are taken more seriously than when in a crisis. There was no government intervening because interference, I guess, because actually one of the reasons, or well, the revolution of 89 was trying to get government out of the people's lives. You know, we were a communist country and we tried to get rid of communism, right? And no government interference was in anything, so to speak, actually. It was very, I mean, at certain points, it was probably a libertarian utopia where government existed only on paper and probably some cops here and there, but it wasn't, nothing was really enforced that much. So people had to find solutions for themselves. Now, later on, more and more government got reintroduced through the democratic elected new government, but it took some time and restructuring, and it took quite some time to get there. And the fastest thing was, of course, to pay the government employees like cops and firemen and that sort of stuff, but not like a lot of bureaucracy just got killed off with one big swoop, and slowly but surely, almost everything crawled back in. So that is it. Of course, we don't know. You know, I can't see the future. What would happen in the United States? HOAs do have a lot of power here as well. So, yeah. Okay. Let's get another comment. Nicholas says inflation is not caused by loss of faith in currency or government. I disagree. Let's see. Inflation is caused by printing and increasing the money supply without increasing the supply of goods and services. Well, that is the technical definition. And if you, depending on what school of thought and economic school are you're coming from, you know, Milton Friedman or Keynesianism, or everyone has its own definition, right? So I do agree that for a high, so let's read the full comment, right? You should not have faith in a dysfunctional currency or government. That is false faith, and it prevents people from finding solution to fix the government and the economy. The antidote to panic is courage. So, I mean, I partially agree on some of this, and I'll expand on my thought process, I guess, a little bit. I do agree that you should not have faith in dysfunctional government, but just because you and I agree, it's not like people will change. And when I do my videos, I try to be pragmatic and realistic and not just say what I would like to happen or what is my opinion, but what I try to observe and based on that come to realistic conclusions and have a model of my surroundings. So just because you and I agree on some things, that doesn't mean that we can base calculations on the future based on our belief system. So regarding inflation not caused by loss of faith in currency, and you're saying inflation is caused by printing, I would say the relationship between printing and inflation has to be there. But when I look at causes, I try to look at the sort of like how in a court of law you would say intent. You know, what is what was the intent, what was causing it. It was, and not the tool that it was achieved by. So in that case, in most cases, you have to have printing and an overprinting of currency to have inflation. But it's sort of like, parallel would be, in order to have war, you have to have weapons, but the weapons were not the cause of the war, you know? So, in order to have hyperinflation, you have to have printed money, and you have to have, agree with you, more money than services, because if not, then it's hard to achieve hyperinflation. However, that is not the cause of hyperinflation, and it's not when the string breaks, so to speak, because you could print a lot of money, and we have been printing a lot of money. If you go back ever since, breaking from the gold standard. However, that hasn't caused that much inflation when, I mean, I know it's a lot, but it's not hyperinflation, right? So well, it should have, but it hasn't caused that yet. So because an economist tried to introduce the velocity of money, right? So we could approach it from your perspective. But when I say faith in the currency, I mean, what do people want to do with that currency? Do they have faith that it will purchase something, right? And it's more closer to the velocity of money, because you can print a lot of money from top down, but if that money doesn't trickle down to the average people who care about purchasing gas, food, energy, housing, and that sort of stuff. If that layer of money, the newly printed fresh currency, gets stuck in this sort of elite, um, or the higher ups in the system, they are just rolling that money back into investments, back to cash investments, and they're not purchasing what the general public is purchasing. So they could be purchasing stocks, they have been doing that a lot, of course, and then with the booms and bust cycles and so on, they could be purchasing tulips. It doesn't matter if they're just switching hands of who's having the money and the tulip, or the tulip and the money, and it's always just pumping the price up. There is inflation just because of printing, but that's not general inflation on the public, right? Just think of an example of people purchasing NFTs for a couple of $1 million. Well, if that person who actually got that $8 million for a crazy drawing NFT, if he doesn't go out and purchase something like a house that you would have wanted to purchase, or food, or actually real stuff in real life, then does it even matter? Does it matter if the tree fell, and did it make a sound if nobody was there to hear it? So the velocity is not there. It's not trickling down to where it would affect you and me. And that has been certainly the effect, because that kind of plays into the K-shaped recovery, or the rich getting richer, because they are just playing these speculative markets with more and more money. And when they lose, they don't lose, because that gets socialized. But when they win, they win. While you and I probably have, well, definitely me, I don't know what social strata you're in, but we have to work for money, and we're almost like in a separate universe, right? So that doesn't mean that that affects us too much. Now, of course, at some point, some other people go into the tulip mania, or stock mania, or cryptocurrency mania, and they get seeped into the market that they play, right? And in that sense, now it's transfer of wealth, right? Because whatever tulip or they were playing with for a long time, now you're actually going in and putting your own money that you worked for into this market. And now a transfer of wealth is happening between you and them. And most likely they all actually just sucking more money out of your pocket. But if you don't sell and it still keeps going up, probably you'll have some wins as well. Now, for those people who got into the tulip market, regular people, and they have made some money, now they most likely will not just keep it in there. They will actually want to buy a car. They will actually want to buy food, vacation. And at that point, it will start to seep in. But as long as a lot of millennials are just trading stocks on apps, there's lot of cash that's being printed. But if it's being just rolled back into stocks, it's just there's always some mechanisms to suck in all that printed cash, right? And it doesn't translate into inflation or hyperinflation. When those people who have acquire these newly printed dollars start actually spending it, then inflation happens. When inflation gets to a point where their stock trading gains don't even cover the cost of inflation, at that point they are losing the faith in currency. And at that point, it's just better off that you buy that house now instead of putting it off and buying it next year. You like people were buying just this year, those fridges or whatever they wanted to buy now because they know that next year will cost more, because they have seen that with the gas price, they have seen that with food price. So now they are starting to lose that faith in currency, and that is really when inflation kicks in. So I think you are right in your assessment. Is just we probably disagree on causation, I guess, but the mechanism is that. Antidote to panic is courage. Well, depending on how you define those words, it might mean different things to you and different things to me. So when I was talking about the psychology of panic and 5 societal strategies of dealing with it, if you watch that video right in, or if the listeners now would be going there and watching those videos, when I talk about panic is depending on how you define it and depending on how I define it. But when I'm talking about panic is that it's actually fear, latent fear that is already in people or in the market, suddenly surfacing. And then people who feel left out of taking action now all rushing to take action on something, and that is causing a spike in the issue that would have been just a linear issue. That's a panic, right? Just like I guess in people in individuals, panic is when there has been some fear in you that will something happen, you haven't taken action on it, you haven't faced your fear that this could happen, and you come to the sudden realization that now it's too late to take action, and then you panic, right? And there's panic attacks and so on. There's psychology in there. Courage is something else. I can see fear and courage not locking each other out. I depending again how you define these words, but to me, you can be courageous even while you're totally afraid. Just because you're afraid, you can still be courageous. That doesn't mean that you're not courageous. Courage is, in some vocabularies, I guess, taking action despite of fear. You could still have fear, but you're actually taking action despite of it, and you're while panic is a culmination of that exit point of fear into the real life. So I would say the antidote to panic is facing your fear, and that takes courage, but that courage alone is probably not enough. You also need to face the fear, and sometimes courage is there, sometimes courage is missing. But facing the fear and realizing the fear before panic hits in, If you keep that fear in a latent phase, and it keeps on building up, and you never do anything about it, then panic will be inevitable. If you take action, or you even don't take action but you face it, meaning that you come to the conclusion that this is inevitable, and you prepare for that, may that be mentally, physically, financially, then you will skip the panic part, because you have already faced the possibility of the panic prior of the panic happening. So preparing is probably the best antidote for panic, I would say. And preparing sometimes take courage, sometimes it doesn't. It just takes you to, you just have to do what you do. And you could be totally afraid. It doesn't matter. So you come to the realization of you need to solve this in time, and the best time is now. May that be securing your economic future, may that be listening to my videos, hitting the like button, make sure you remember that, and so on. Sharing the video is very important. It looks like YouTube doesn't always like the content, but that's their problem. As long as you guys like it, I'll keep on making that. Another question, and we'll go to our live questions soon. How did silver do in a hyperinflation? Does it matter what kind of physical silver? Well, silver and gold both went up tremendously during the hyperinflation, but we didn't even have. I told the story many times before. In communism, gold was actually outlawed, so we didn't have a lot of gold. We did have silver, and we had ornamentals and jewelry, and probably the worst possible kinds of silver that you could use in a barter situation. But it did go up. Now, it didn't go up as much as gold. Now, because we just didn't have any, that could be a relationship of not having enough to go around, but also just in the mentality of the general people, was gold was more entrenched than silver, at least in that culture back then. So I would say gold went up more, multiples of its own value, faster than silver. However, silver did follow. It was just whenever you went to trade gold or buy gold for security reasons, even during hyperinflation, if you wanted to purchase some gold or some precious metals, people were always asking for gold and not so much silver, the general people. Now, that doesn't mean that you could have made a lot of money with silver. And probably as hyperinflation was ending, I will have to double check on this information, but if my memory is correct, I would say silver was still appreciating while gold stopped appreciating. So probably it caught up. But that big jump first was in gold, and probably that was just because of people wanted gold for such a long time during communism, and they couldn't have it. Maybe that was so. It depends on the market psychology, your local market, and so on. Does it matter what kind of physical silver? Well, yes, of course it matters. It matters a lot, because it depends on what do you want to do with it. What do you want to? What is your exit plan, or do you even have an exit plan? Do you want to use it for barter? Do you want to try to use it for barter? Because you'll have to use barter what the other person is taking, right? But so yes, everything matters, and you have to plan out what you want to do, what your exit strategy is. Now, if you want the most out of it, there will be, during a hyperinflation situation, there will be there will be situations where you could exit out of silver or gold with a very good position and make the most out of it. If you just keep it through hyperinflation, the effect of that is you saving your current wealth, what you have now, through the period, and then you're still having the same wealth after the period, but you're not picking up very good deals during hyperinflation, which is probably the safest strategy if you're already pretty wealthy and you don't want to take risks. Then it has been a good strategy and it has worked out very well for people that I know that actually had gold in their family prior communism, and they saved it through communism, which lasted a long time, and then fourth generation eventually bought different stuff with it. But if you want to make the most out of it, you want to make it in a form that recognizable for others. It's in small, at least you have some in small denominations or amounts. That is also fungible, I think the word is. And well, let me see what else would be it. So in a form that's recognizable, measurable, and fungible, and there's probably a fourth one, but I can't not remember. But basically, you want to make sure that it's close to a currency as much as possible, because it will go up in price, and you want to make you don't want to lose on your trade, right? You want to, because if you have huge bars of silver and you're buying a property, are you going to cut that? Do they even want to have a bar of silver? You want to have probably ounces of silver, and ideally government issued, or half ounces of silver and government issued. The problem with trying to have a exit strategy during hyperinflation, but sort of being blind to the situation that you're in, that it's maybe where you are, it's not safe to barter, or if it's it could be a trap, right? You want to be able to hide the perception of something that you have more than enough. We'll talk about strategies probably in some private videos. But yeah, just give it a thought what you want to do with it, because maybe you have enough that you want to have discrete numbers or segregated. Some you'll save through, some you'll spend, and maybe some other plans as well, and have all of them, probably diversify. If I would know what your plan is, then I could give you a better answer, but I hope that answered somewhat. So let's go to some of the live questions, if we have any. Louis says, I emailed you about graphing certain inflation metrics. I'll check. I have received quite some emails, a number of emails, so I will be going through them. Thank you. Scrav says, love your wits. Well, thank you very much. Do you think if we get hyperinflation, the government could adjust those fixed rate mortgages so mortgages would be more expensive? I think they could. Yes, absolutely they could. It's hard to think what government will do when we're not in hyperinflation. We can't even calculate what's their next step. at least this administration, we don't even know what their next step is going to be next, Tuesday. So it's hard to say that. However, I do want to say that just take a look at the pandemic situation. I mean, they put a moratorium in. Usually they want to have the masses on their side, the poor people, the also good-hearted people, but also the people who could be manipulated. So usually they will try to do some stuff to win those people over. I'm not sure if this step would be against or for them. But if you take a look at other countries, what they are doing, you can pretty much paint a picture of what a certain type of government would do. And you don't have to look too far, right? Just a month ago or a couple of weeks ago, if you look at Berlin, what happened there was actually suddenly it became illegal to own apartment buildings over 1,000 units or something like that. If you guys can look it up and send me in the chat, then we'll talk about it more. But something similar like that happened. Now, you may have a positive or negative opinion, and I may have different or the same opinions. What we want to observe is what is the action, how you can prepare for that, and so on. So I'm just saying that when the targets are made, it's usually the financial minority, the upper middle class that they are after, not the people who are very hard to deal with. The people who have nothing to lose, or they think they have nothing to lose, governments are having hard times to dealing with them, so they actually leave them alone during hyperinflation situations or scenarios. So I've told you many times before that I come from a very poor family, and you guys ask about taxes a lot, or HOAs, or that sort of stuff. But the bottom, layer of society, they don't want too much pressure on them, because that's the layer of society that will snap. And in many cases, governments want to actually keep their power or use hyperinflation to their advantage. So they might not want to overstep or overplay their hand, because soldiers have families, cops have families, and everyone's suffering. So yes, they could, yes, they can. Will they, or will they have a more gradual approach to it and kind of feel out that strata of the society that they can take advantage of? And then, of course, when that's not enough, they step lower and lower and lower. And you probably know how history works. And then eventually nobody escapes. But by that time, who knows what else is going to happen politically, or major political shifts happen between World War I or World War II, all the horrible things there. So I don't think at that point you will care about mortgages or your house anymore. Now I don't want to paint too black of a picture, but I'm saying depends on what your plan is, depends on what is your asset, and so on. I do see it possible. So it's in the game plan. It has to be in the game plan, because when we had hyperinflation, we were going from communism to a more liberal economy, liberal in the sense that free economy. So government was stepping out of the picture. Now, especially these last couple of years, it definitely seems the exact opposite is happening, that government is stepping in more and more into the picture and the lives of people. So to me, it's becoming more and more apparent that something like that could happen. But all the rest that I said before, I think is still in effect. So did you have to have backups to the utilities when they ran spotty? I don't think the current rate of utility consumption can easily be replicated. I'm not sure if I understand. Did you have to have? Is that for our situation, in Romania? We did not have anything like that. It was everything. So again, communism. Everything was government controlled. Everything was run by the government. That also meant, to be honest, that a lot of the cost inflation could be subsidized very easily. It could be that the government was actually, at some points for sure, stepping in to help the very poor people with expenses with electricity or that sort of stuff. But you know how it works. I mean, it was just having electricity for 2 hours a day, or sometimes up, sometimes up. You couldn't. I mean, you could not depend on on your freezer or fridge going and storing food in there. So it was very spotty, but at least you had enough to. Well, we didn't even have a lot of electrical like stuff. I mean, what did we have during communism? Like a washing machine? Is that the only thing we had? It's not like we had the internet or computers or anything like that. Especially not my family. We didn't have anything. So electricity wasn't that big of a deal because we had natural gas and propane for heating, and we were lucky. So Romania is quite rich when it comes to natural resources, or used to be back then, and we that was still going. That was pretty good, especially in the parts of Transylvania where we were. I mean, it wasn't always there, but we when it was really cold, we would actually sleep in the kitchen, turn the range on, and preheat the kitchen, and then close it, and that hope to God that heat will be enough so we don't freeze in the winter times. Yeah, but now I think you would need to have something like that. So, right, let me actually. I might even have it in the description of this video. So it depends on your budget, right? It depends on what you have and what you can afford. Everybody's situation is different. I would love to have a full blown solar solution. We don't. I'm not able to spend that money now on it, but I am so whatever solution we have now is not really enough, and I would want to supplement it. And I thought, well, why not just go with this EcoFlow portable power station, right? That is, so I'm looking at it right now. And actually, this was, we had a couple of emails with Ali, and this is something that he bought, and I'm planning to buy this as well. It's one of those things that RVs or campers use, and you can hook it up with some solar battery or solar generators, right? Some panels, and it's a packaged solution. I actually probably have already a link in the description. So it depends on what you where you live. Does solar even work for you, or do you have to supplement it with something else? Maybe generators or something like that. But if solar power does work for you, then I think for me at least, this is my probably next purchase soon enough. Is that EcoFlow portable power station? It depends on how many wattage you need, because what you want to run on it. Right now, I'm running power tools to charge power tools, but with this we could probably have a good solution for refrigeration and food storage, and everything else can, I don't know, I don't care too much about it. So it depends on your situation. Luigi, I'm asleep now, it's very very late. Well, have a good night and sweet dreams. The problem is the rich will purchase commercial real estate, and real estate price will increase and increase rent for businesses, which will increase the price for everything else. Well, that has been the trend, hasn't it? Yeah, for sure. And rich is very relative. The people that I may call rich or might not be that rich. There's always bigger fish up there. And the problem is when that very top layer of rich people who are connected with government or actually run the government, really, when they buy it up, there's a very few ways out of that, I should say. And that's definitely, I mean, at this point, BlackRock and those it's almost like a branch of government now. Who knows what will happen? Um, Technically, yeah, I don't want to go down that road. Yeah, but it's really, it might not be the rich people that you're thinking of. I'm saying, just because there are rich people, and if there would be a very um if it wouldn't be a two-layer society, and if it would be more of a rainbow of every people, and there would be mobility in that, just that would not be a problem. But that's not what we have. And other countries are even worse. So don't give me this America's that bad and this bad and so on. Most countries are even worse. It does seem that crypto is acting like a huge liquidity trap, helping to mitigate price increases and keeping fall prices down. Well, yeah, everyone's opinions about crypto is a bit different. I do tend to agree with that. Um, it does seem like it is almost a clearinghouse to all of this newly printed money, freshly printed money, to suck in the inflation that would hit us immediately, to soften the sort of the blow. So the people who are printing that money can actually still purchase assets, real assets, on the cheap, while as these new freshly printed money is seeping through the economy, by the time affects you, a lot of that has went into stocks or cryptos and other stuff that doesn't really have too much effect on the average people. And then this the play that they are doing, they get to play it for a longer time, because there's this clearinghouse of cryptos, of you and everyone else putting in a lot of money into cryptos instead of buying assets, that now they don't have you to compete with because you're buying digital stuff and NFTs or something like that. Now, with that said, I always have to tell this: not every crypto is made the same from the same cloth. There are projects that I'm really excited about. There are projects that I think are just memes, but sometimes if you're making a fast buck or fast trade, you can do it and you can get rich off of it. I'm not saying that I know each and every strategy. I'm just trying to look at from a bigger picture and see what sort of is happening and who benefits, cui bono, right? So yeah, everybody has to take their own decisions, but for me, being 100% in crypto would be insane. So, but I do, like, in my portfolio, there is room for 5%, how should I say, gambling, right? And I don't play roulette. I'm not smoking. I'm not doing bets on sports games. So why not put some in cryptos? But that might not be that something that you want to do. So who knows? JB, I'm glad I caught this great insight. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for all the comments under the videos. So yeah, thank you. If dollar hyperinflates, would RMB ruble be significantly affected? If not, should we hold some RMB and ruble? Well, I'm not a financial advisor. I cannot tell you what you to do. Depending on what your strategy is during hyperinflation. However, at this point, from what I'm seeing, um, pretty much all the government issued currencies are in lockstep. I don't see too much deviancy between them. There will be probably some major surprises. Um, the Swiss franc is always there. They are sometimes, I think they were the very first ones to kind of break the peg away from the dollar secretly. Like in one Tuesday or one Wednesday, they were saying, and this was a while back, and I'm not even sure. I haven't followed that. I think this was around, well, after sometime after 2008, 2012, or something like that. On Wednesday, they said, "Oh, everything's fine. We're gonna keep it," and then on Friday, they broke the peg. So there will be some surprises. Definitely, countries with big reserves are gonna be much better. But I don't know too much about the Russian economy, and the political situation there might not be that stable. So who knows? I really don't know. Yeah, it's if you have some insight, I would love to hear it. Hans Wurst. Usually silver outperforms gold in bull markets. Well, yes, that's true. Definitely true. For the same amount, if you buy for the same dollar amount, you buy silver or you just buy gold, and then everything goes up, you have much better chance of duplicating or getting a better deal with silver. Also true on the down on the downtrend, right? So we know that it's really what your percentage should be between this or the other, what you're comfortable with, and what is your exit plan if you have any, or maybe you just want to um, keep it in the family for the next 7 generations, probably. Who knows? But I agree, that's true. Bonjour de Montreal. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Montreal, but bonjour, Ellen. Ahmed, hi Arpad. Looks like I'm catching you midway. Everybody buy this man a coffee. He's the best. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Well, yeah, I do enjoy my coffees, and well, I have to thank each and every one of you who have purchased coffees through Buy Me a Coffee, or have supported me on my Patreon, and I mean, truly, I'm really grateful for it. Thank you very much. And thank you for the great comment, Ahmed. Fred says no one knows the exact future, but all dishonest societies fall. Yes, of course, and almost all societies become dishonest at some point, right? For a solar panel system, we'll keep refrigerator less than $2,000 if you do it yourself. Yes, and I mean, I dabbled in it and I tried it. It's just when I tried it, I don't think we had the right. Probably got in too early, to be honest, and now I have to redo some stuff, and it's not good at all. So I'm planning on redoing everything, but now we're facing some other issues. But I did hear that if you convert a freezer, a chest freezer, into a refrigerator, which I have not done, but I will be eventually looking into that, you can run it on very low wattage, very low power. And supposedly it's like a miracle that how low the power is. So, I'm going to be looking more into that for sure. Yep. So Ahmed Vedian, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing your name right. Probably. When I was a single mom, you're Ahmed's wife then. Thank you very much for the coffees. So when I was a single mom, I put 3 sweaters on my kid, the blankets on the window. Oh man, yes. Climbed in bed under more blankets and played Eskimo. Oh god. We survived in winter during gas outage. Ahmed wife. Oh, okay. Wow. Well, to be honest, I know the feeling. It brings back memories. I'm sorry to hear you had to suffer through things like that. When people know, they know, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Just and as an adult thinking how to hide it for the kids. So yeah. 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 Very familiar. Well, thank you for sharing the story. I just bought a 2 kilowatt system for $1,000, panels and everything, batteries. What's the name of the system? Yan An Hawang. Well, yeah, 4 panels, 150 watt. Yeah, you can run your refrigerators and everything that you really need to do for food. Yeah, post the name or a link or something. I'll look it up. I'm planning on the EcoFlow portable power station. But if there are any else out there that others recommend, I'm looking into it. What do you think is going on with Russia and their military movement right now? Hmm. I mean, yeah. I think well, I'm trying to find the right words in English. Um, I don't see it as big as a threat as they are playing it to be. That's probably putting it. Yeah. Um, it's always been like this. Russia tends to be this big boogeyman and plays his part right, and we always have somewhere to focus our um, attention to. So eventually, I stopped paying attention too much. I'm not saying that it could not spark something big, like with the Ukraine incident. It could definitely happen, but it's so out of my power to do anything about that that it just doesn't make too much sense to pay too much attention. But I could see it as a spark and a very good excuse for something that happens to us. So in that sense, it does interest me, and it's very close to Romania, so that interests me as well. And Romania signed some idiotic treaties with the United States recently, which made them a huge target for Russia because they now a lot of United States installed like tons of missiles now, even more into Romania, and now yeah, and it's even it's not that big of a country, and they're in idiotic places where if they get those stations or yeah, Romania's administration for these last couple of what like 8 years have been looking for trouble, and eventually they will find it. So it does trouble me. All right, looks like that is it. We're getting close to an hour, so yep. Let me see if I have a couple more questions, maybe just one last more, and then after that, we'll call it the night. But it was great. I mean, I like talking to you guys and reading all your comments. And thank you everyone for liking the video and sharing the video and posting awesome questions, and thank you for all the coffees that you have purchased me. All right. Okay, so this one was funny. I know Romania is a large country, but do you happen to know Stefan that came to California and worked at Home Depot for about 14 years ago? Have him reach out to me. Yeah, I know Stefan, of course. He lived on 22 Street in Bucharest, and yeah, just behind the church. I'll call him right up. Yeah, people have different views on cryptocurrencies, very polarized. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Yeah. All right. I guess we'll call it tonight then. So um okay, one more question came in. One question: will the Reserve Bank come to the rescue after the next crash? Will Bitcoin crash and burn? Yeah, well, I think that is the plan. I think that is the plan to have the Federal Reserve come in to make the situation so bad that something that is would be normally an anomaly and you would be crazy to accept it. In very crazy situations, you're fine with it. Just have let me have my bread. That has happened in the Romania as well, right? We didn't care too much about the country going into servitude for the next 30 years to the Western European countries because we were too poor to care and we were too preoccupied of not dying. So there's definitely a plan to centralize everything more and more. I mean, that's clear and out in the open. So, I mean, just saying it out loud, it's there. And the way to do that is let smaller systems fail and make the situation so bad that the smaller system cannot prevail, and then offer the bigger solution of a more central solution and a more central solution. And eventually, next step is us having accounts at the Federal Reserve, and in 8 years or 10 years or 20 years after that event, all of us will have accounts at the IMF or something like that. And who knows? That's how you centralize stuff. It's a game played over and over again. So yeah, that seems to me the plan. I don't know what the plan is with Bitcoin. It looks like a lot of countries that, like China and some other countries, are trying to flip flop between, yes, it's totally fine, and then suddenly banning them, and then rumors coming out. So I'm not sure what's the deal with that. And then Hillary Clinton coming out with Bitcoin is challenging the reserve currency state of the United States dollar. I mean, at this point, it's very hard to take anything on face value. What they say, it's more like you have to see the kabuki theater and behind and try to make your best guesses on what they're trying to sell you and why they are selling you that. Um, So at this point, I'm not afraid of Bitcoin. Um, yeah, threatening the dollar just because they said that it does. However, it would be a very, very fast transfer of wealth for those who have just sold Bitcoin and for those who have bought Bitcoin if Bitcoin would be outlawed in the United States. And nobody would bat an eye, unfortunately, because there are so many regulations and applied force in and every other aspect of life that would there be major upheavals if, oh no, they banned Bitcoin? Will there be protests out on the street or something like that? Now, of course, that would maybe cut the value in half, but the utility would be still there, right? It's outside of the system of governments, but it's not outside of the system of electricity. So, depending on what level of crash you're preparing for, it might be very different. And depending on the issue is that these systems like government overreach or hyperinflation or transitory governments or whatever, these last a long time. I mean, um, hyperinflation lasted around 7 years for us. It could last 20 years for Zimbabwe. It could last 2 years. It could last 1 year. It could be a war in between. It could be a change of political structure in between. Uh, just what happens if we go into a very bad situation, right, where your cryptocurrency has a liquidity problem for the next 7 years? I'm not saying like what would happen. I'm asking you to think about what would happen, you know? So it's very hard. I'm saying there's the utility of Bitcoin is very different than gold. And people are trying to compare it or gold or silver, right? People are comparing it to gold because it's an inflation hedge. And I mean, at this point, it's pretty much was. I mean, it was more of a speculation than an inflation hedge, but you could say that it's it's an inflation hedge, and you can also say that it's outside of government, but it's not unaffected by government. I mean, last crash or sort of crash in Bitcoin, supposedly, I'm not saying it was because of this, but supposedly it was because Elon Musk tweeted something, or there's a news article about Amazon doing something when the price jumps, or it's the volatility is way bigger than its inflation hedge aspect of it, right? That's what I'm saying. And that could be very good if that's what you're hoping for, if that's what you're playing for, you know. And gold isn't too much of an inflation hedge as well as a lot of people are saying. It's a hedge against failing government, and for that, Bitcoin can be a hedge against it as well. If it's a local government, if it's a small government like Venezuela or Lebanon is failing, perfect hedge for that. Way better possibly than gold for a local government because it's more easily tradable. But against multiple governments failing or a bigger system failing, we don't know what cryptocurrencies would act. However, we have seen precious metals weather through these storms no problem, because the life cycle or the cycles of precious metals is way bigger than some governments that last. They last longer than governments do. So it's a very different play. It's a different game, but you can benefit from both. But depending on the situation, the issue was or is that um, life forms adapt, and once they have adapted, then energy consumption is going down. But when they are adapting, just wait for it. I'm going somewhere with this. So when there's a life form and it finds itself in extreme conditions for a long period of time that it can survive through, it will adapt. But that period of it adapting to the new condition consumes a lot of energy, and there's a lot of natural selection there. But once they have adapted, once that new white fur is there, or whatever you need to do for the cold, then energy consumption is not that big anymore because you have adapted. Same with us humans. The problem is, so we knew a system before, we knew how it worked, before 1971. Save your money, go to college. You know what Robert Kiyosaki says. Save your money, save for your retirement, 401k, go to college, pay off your debt, have zero debt, and have a good life, right? After we went off the gold standard, now money became debt, and now it's a different situation a little bit. And again, 50 years later, now it seems that the change is happening again. But these change periods will consume a lot of energy, a lot of us talking, trying to figure out what the next system will be, trying to adapt. And in these cases, diversifying makes a lot of sense because you don't know what the next step will be. So I know you guys would like to have like a one-off solution. Hey, do this, do buy this amount of ounces of silver, do that, do this, and here's the proof list that you need to do. But it's not like that. We have to figure it out, and we have to figure it out from what they are planning, and they are planning and changing their plan by watching us somewhat. So it's a very dynamic situation, and this will take a lot of energy for us as well. And you have to watch out because this could drain you. So actually, life begins when there is uncertainty. If everything would be certain always, then I mean, is that even life? You have to start enjoying this period, and you have to be okay living in this decade, this century, and so on. You are here for some reason, right? So start enjoying it, and um, you know, comment more, and you have to diversify in thought processes first. So I'm hoping I'm helping in that I'm not really selling you one thing or the other. It would be much easier for me to come here, have an exact product to sell, and give you that exact same answer every time, and I would be probably more rich than asking um, for you to join my Patreon or buy me a coffee or something like that. But that's not what I do. I know it's yeah, it's you have to be true to yourself first, and then money will come. But yeah, so I'm observing things. I'm trying to break things down, and based on your comments, based on your input, I'm updating my models as well. All right, more questions. Yeah, why not? You guys are fun. CBDC, the rescue are the CBDC. Well, yeah. So if you saw my video about the previous video about panic and the psychology of panic, I talked about different scenarios and different situations loss of faith in currency or loss of faith in government, one or the other, but then also both. CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, solve the problem. I know solve is relative, but solve the problem of loss of faith in currency while loss in government is intact. And that is what the planners of the current situation are betting on, because that has been played out many times in history. Romania was like that, where loss of government was there. It did light the fuse for hyperinflation, but loss of government wasn't too long, right? Eventually, during those 7 years, the faith in government was coming back and back and back and back. The first few years of the hyperinflation was the worst, and then it kind of eased off until the new currency, the new lei, was introduced. Now it could be CBDCs or new dollars or Ameros, somebody asked, and we'll have to come back to Ameros or whatever. So that's what they're betting on. And that was whenever a lot of these smart people are talking about hyperinflation and giving their analysis and giving like how gold could play part of a global currency and trade settlements and so on. That is the situation that they're talking about. Loss of faith in currency, hyperinflation. But hyperinflation has multiple aspects of it. So it could be that it's actually first lost of faith in government. That is not what the planners are planning, because that is risky for them as well. At that point, it's chaos, and nobody rules chaos. They might have caused the chaos, but they don't rule chaos. Nobody does. So that is more risky for them. And how they want to mitigate that, of course, or how they want to play that part out or rule that part out, is to actually give government more and more power over the people or the general people, to the point that everyone thinks it's too much, and then ease back off of it slowly, and then you are gaining back your trust in government. If that plays out well, then at least we will not have a civil war or something like that, and CBDCs will be introduced. If that doesn't play well, and to be honest, it hasn't been tried in the United States, and the United States is not like any other country. So I don't know why they are thinking that this will work out well for everyone, but I think that's what they're thinking. So that has been like that's what it looks to me, with all the lockdowns and everything, that we're making it so bad for you that anything we give back from that point, you'll be happy with. And then regain of trust in government is there, and then loss of faith in currency, and then CBDCs will work. But there's other cases as well where actually there's no hyperinflation, there's no loss of faith in currency, but there is a loss of faith in government. That is a very different situation. That is Exeter's pyramid. If you know the graph, look it up. It's actually unraveling, where the more liquid assets are deflating until that tip of the pyramid. There's precious metals, but above that layer there's cash. Actually, yes, so cash. So as everything is deflating, everything, all the value and concentration is coming back to the what's real, or at least more real than like stocks and bonds and that sort of stuff. And eventually there's cash right before precious metals. So if that is happening, if it's falling back towards the tip of the inverted pyramid, that's actually dollars will become more valuable. That is why I keep on mentioning there could be a deflationary spiral, short deflationary spiral, because I think it can be overreacted by government. But it could be a short deflationary spiral before we do a 180 on it. So in that case, there's a loss of faith in government, that your government is not representing you. Your government is not solving the pandemic problem, and so on and so on. It could be snap elections. I mean, Europe is full of this. It's not like, let's not pretend that this is something weird. Okay, snap elections, unrests, summer of 2020 multiplied by 20 or 2020, and then all of that. So what would happen in that way? What would happen then? Everybody would grab onto cash. Most likely there would be a bank holiday, like in Lebanon, like in Romania, like in Argentina, like everywhere else there was, and your cash being stuck in the banking system, and then trickling back the digital dollars, or possibly printing dollars right into your wallet, or having to make settlements just with actually paper cash. That would be loss of faith in government, but not yet a loss of faith in currency. That's also a possibility. The third possibility is, well, nothing happens. There's no loss of faith at all, and everything just keeps on going for your next 7 years. Could be there, more, maybe more. But the third possibility is there's a loss of faith in government and currency at the same time. I think that is what is probably the worst, because nobody will care about your CBDCs. Yeah, if there's loss of faith in government, people will reject it. That won't help at all. At that point, it's just Bitcoin and precious metals. I mean, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. Now, there are different cryptocurrencies that would be better in some cases or worse in some cases in this scenario. However, at that point, I mean, it's everyone for himself, and we can talk about that situation, what could play out. But yeah. So that was a long answer for CBDCs, but this is just what it is, and that's the nature of the beast. Have you been able to contact the Lebanon guy, Ali, since the blackout? Yes, I did. I actually wrote an email to him. Yes, and he was doing okay, but this was quite some time ago. He was concerned after the blackout, and there was this almost civil war situation for a day or two in Beirut. But yeah, I should probably have him on again. Yeah. Looks like more questions are coming in. Yeah, maybe a couple more. Why not? How did small businesses fare back in Romania in terms of small sweets, cheap luxuries? Did that exist, or did inflation even make ice cream obsolete? No, nothing makes ice cream obsolete. Very good question. Actually, small businesses, depending on the business, but they did fairly well. A lot of people with small businesses were able to make a lot of money. And to be honest, a lot of people hated them for that. And they did. Some of them did kind of take advantage of the situation, but much depended on what they were providing and if they could even get the supplies. Right? Can they get the produce? Because that was a bigger problem because of the breaking down of the supply chain. So that was their problem. Like they had real big problems, and a lot of small businesses were shut down. Many. Um, yeah. However, the ones that did survive made a lot of money. They were able to buy full blocks of cities after that, or huge farms or whatever. And a lot of people hated them for that, and that was it. But they either had to store a lot of supplies prior and then be able to sell them, which was very hard to do because again, this was communism. It wasn't like you could do that for a long time. Everything was overseen by government, and you might not be even thinking about what when you talk about small business. What I'm talking about small business, but it was that the need for small, sweet, cheap luxuries was there, and yes, they did well. The ones that survived, and the ones that were flexible, and to be honest, sometimes the ones that were very corrupt and were able to navigate the situation. Edited 3 months ago says that's why I own silver. I'm not sure what that when what did I say when you wrote that, but good for you. I think it's one of the best things to own, and it's very underappreciated right now, and I think it will be for some time. So as long as you can hold it and you don't have to sell it, perfect. That's why I own both. Okay, so you're having a conversation. Suzanne the Patriot, my dog woke me up to go outside. I checked my phone out of habit. You should not check your phone late at night. But I'm glad you did because now you're here. I was excited to see the Arpad on air. Okay, it's 2:40 a.m. where I'm living. Is everyone crazy as me? Well, thank you for being here. What can I say? Okay, it's getting really late. Yeah, yeah. Well, I really had a good time for you. I did rant a little bit, but I think it's all good. I hope you guys enjoyed it, the guys and girls, of course. And yeah, another question. I love it. Arpad, let's just we'll end it after this question. Johnny Urban Woodsman. Arpad, what type of silver was accepted in Romania in hyperinflation? Would silver coin like 90% American coin, 50% Great Britain coins be used? Um, it was not used in Romania, but we just didn't have any. The only type of silver we had was jewelry and ornamentals and that sort of stuff. Now, actually, people did use silver, well, partials. It's not full silver, but silver spoons and forks and that sort of stuff um, on markets, and they did sell and buy those. But yeah, we didn't. We just didn't have it. Now I could foresee where these would be used. However, um, I think, well, it's my opinion, right? And I'm not fully immersed. So my apologies, but I'm not fully immersed into the silver coin market, right? For me, if you would be trading with me personally, but I'm fine with learning, right? If you would be trading with me personally, I would rather take 99.9 percent silver coin, hopefully issued by some government, maybe Canada, United States, or something else. And then I would recognize that, I would know the silver content of it, and I could easily calculate what it is. Now, in barter situations where there's a smaller trusted group, like a small town, and something catches on. In our case, sometimes it was coffee. Sometimes it was powdered milk, chocolate, that sort of stuff. And everybody knows the value of it. Almost anything works, right? And I can foresee if you have a community, and I know there's the silver stackers and so on, they would probably take that coin from you. And if I see that going on during these situations, I would take it on as well, because I know that they take it and I can always use it with them. So it depends, but I would say, depending on your wealth, make sure you. So I'm not giving advice, right? But if depending on my wealth and how much I have or would have in silver, the percentage of how much I would have in 90% American coin and 50% Great Britain coins would be vary a lot, because I wouldn't want the bulk of my savings in that, because for me, with my limited knowledge in silver coins and their value and their historical usage in the United States, I would want some. I could foresee situations where it would work, but I would also be relying on other people who don't know the value, that they will have to learn the value during the hyperinflation and then start using it. And to be honest, there's a lot of dumb people out there. And while I may be open to learn about it and then take it as payment from you for my services or help, or my live chicken or eggs that I'm selling, probably during hyperinflation, I'm not sure if there will be there in downtown Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? There was this video about a guy going with a silver bar and a chocolate bar, right? And which one do you take? Both are free, but you can only take one. And people took the chocolate bar. So I'm saying that if you are smart enough and you want to trade with these people during these times, you might be better off giving them the chocolate bar. Why would you give them silver for what they're selling? If they're taking chocolate bars, they'll give them the chocolate bar. That video was put in a very in a perspective that just showing how dumb people, yes, they were so clueless, how clueless people are. But that's also a good opportunity for them. Pay them in chocolate bars, pay them in something that they know, and then save your silver to bigger purchases. Maybe this was case. I mean, even in Romania, sometimes now you could take your gold to a bank and make a deal with them. Depending on the bank, actually, I'm talking about a certain Greek bank, Greek bank in Romania. Now I think they closed after all the crisis, or they got bought up. Piraeus, I think, was the bank. You could take your gold there and then start dealing with them. You maybe want to have for your precious metals for bigger purchases or taking out loans or whatever. Like, use them wisely. Don't try to force something that the other person doesn't value, and then you trying to first teach them at the spot and then trade with them, because you're getting a bad deal. Let them have chocolate, let them have beans or whatever they want. So that's why I'm saying you have to diversify, and it could work. But I think it has some limitations, and I need to learn more about them. That's also true. So that was the last questions, because it could go on for 2 days and I would still have fun talking to you. All right. Thank you very much. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and talk to you next time.